What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Phaithful Phanatics Show live here on DSM-Media's YouTube channel. Guys, if you are new to the channel and want to support, make sure to smash that subscribe button, turn on notifications for whenever we go live or post a video here on the channel. It's the best spot to get interactive with your host. I am one half of them this morning, Dylan Davis. To my left, my faithful co-host, Scotty. If you guys want to find our work on Twitter, make sure to check us out at DSM_media. It's the best spot to be interactive with us on social media platforms as well. But my man, happy Friday. Obviously, the Sixers take care of business last night, winning 3 straight over the Toronto Raptors, improving to 3-1 on the young season. It's also the end of Dallas week. We're getting closer towards Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott facing off at the link this Sunday afternoon. So we're going to be breaking that all down for you. But how are you feeling on this Friday morning, my man?
I'm feeling good, man. Honestly, we're coming off 3 straight Sixers W's, and I would even say 4 straight W's because we could throw the James Harden trade in there as well. That's a W on the week as well. So I'm feeling really good, especially now that I see James Harden in that LA Clippers jersey and hear all the delusional remarks coming out of him from that angle.
He's the system, bro.
I can see that. It doesn't matter where he is. He'll never realize what he truly is and what he brings to a team. So we aren't as insane as we thought we were. Yeah, I guess that's the way to put it, right? It feels like we're insane in the moment. No, we're not insane. He is. That's the problem. And that's why I'll take that W. Yeah, TR ain't wrong, man. Korkmaz gets inserted into the rotation. And he was a second highest on the team in plus minus last night. Not only that, he got into double figures. So great night for Furkan. Don't know what that was about. Like if that was the plan due to, the players just arriving in that trade. They couldn't play just yet, but good for him nonetheless after the 3 trade demands. It's a good look to come out and perform well when you demand a trade 3 times in a row. So shout out to Korkmaz. But happy Friday, man. Let's get it.
Man.
Dallas week started with the fuck Dallas as well. Got to throw that out there.
Throw that out there.
Fuck Dallas week. But yeah, man, we can start Sixers.
Let's start with that 114-99 victory. We can even start here, man, because the first thing that came to my mind when Furkan was one of the first 2 off the bench last night in Nick Nurse's rotation. I thought the same thing you did. Now, obviously, Nick Batum was out for personal reasons. He's the only one that was reported, so I was kind of intrigued to see Marcus Morris, bless you, in street clothes. Obviously, like we were talking about, he hasn't played it all this season, so he's probably ramping up still. But then I was like, well, why wasn't he involved in the injury report then, or rest or anything? So he wasn't available either. But it does make you think just how different this Sixers offense, defense, scheme, game plan, everything is compared to last year or previous years under Doc Rivers, right? Like the fact that we're going to I'm assuming the same thing that you are, that Robert Covington, KJ Martin, some of these new acquisitions did not really get playing time last night until garbage time because they're not acclimated to the system yet, because they're not familiar with the playbook and the offense yet. But that's crazy to me because like you watch a PJ Tucker who's 38 years old get traded to the LA Clippers, and the next night he's out there playing in an overtime game. So the first thing that came to my mind was just how in depth is this Nick Nurse offense? You know what I mean? Like how much of it is not just a free flowing, how much of it is plays and design and scheme and everything that you have to know before he's comfortable putting you out on the floor.
Yeah, I think it speaks to how intricate his play designs have to be, and maybe even more importantly, the defensive designs as well, right? Just knowing where you need to be on defense, where you need to be on the offense. And we see how the ball moves, how guys cut, knowing when to cut, not cutting on top of one another, 2 guys cutting at the same. So there's like so many things that you would have to watch out for. Where are you going to be setting the screen on this play? So looking at this offense, it makes sense when you think about it logically, right? Like these guys shouldn't be able to go in and run this offense immediately without ever playing it for a day in their life. But we're just so used to Doc Rivers sending guys out there to stand around in corners, stand around in wings. And all you got to do is just sit there and watch Joel get the ball. He's going to pound the ball into the floor, get double teamed, and then you just got to hit your shots. That was the offense.
Yep.
Like literally. And then you would just mix in a little bit of James Harden and Joel pick and roll, right? Like that was the Sixers offense. So it's not very hard to figure out how to fit in there, right? You're not going to touch the ball primarily. You're going to be an alternate option, basically, when it comes to getting shots in the ball. And you've seen it play out for everyone. I mean, look at Tobias Harris. He looks like a completely different player in this offense. He looks confident. He has the ball in his hands. And it's not just that he's just pounding the rock. The ball is just touching everyone's hands. And I think for that type of system, it does take time to learn the plays, learn where you're going to fit, and learn your role in it.
That's
and
my point, man.
I think that's a great point because you look at the Clippers. I think Tyronn Lue's a great coach, but maybe it speaks to their depth though as well, right? That they have to throw PJ out there immediately. They didn't throw Harden out there immediately, just PJ. But no, I think it's a great point though. Looking at what this Sixers team is doing right now. And I wanted to say one more thing about Korkmaz because I think there's also a part of it where it's like you've traded for these new players, right?
Yeah.
But Korkmaz was on this team. He was working hard every day in practice for this team. So it's almost like a pecking order when it comes to like, all right, you new guys got to earn your spots on this roster. And Korkmaz has been here. He's been working out. He's been training, practicing. So he's going to get this shot. And
sure, but how many times are we going to watch this movie? You know what I mean? Like how many years in a row now are we going to watch him come out in his first little bit of action on the season and knock down a 3 or 2 and have a ridiculous finish at the rim, and he has a steal, and he looked good. He looked playable last night. Don't be wrong. And him and Embiid were having fun, right? But like, how many times are we going to do this before he comes out in 3 straight games and is struggling on defense and turning the ball over and can't hit a 3 from the corner and so on and so forth? And my thing with TR, man, is with this comment here is like, sure, like he's been here for a minute and we would all love to see him succeed, I guess. But my question is, like, when you look at everyone they just traded for, and to your point, maybe they got to earn their stripes and they got to earn their playing time since he's been here. But we just talked about post Harden trade, how the Sixers legitimately are like 13 deep, like 13 play. I don't need another hat thrown in the ring for playing time, if I'm being honest. Like, that's only going to complicate. Like, I know it sounds like a good problem to have, but that's also going to complicate it, man. Oh no. One game. No.
Hey, I'll be honest, Dylan. I think Korkmaz deserves.
No, not you too, bro.
Man. Yeah, Nick Nurse. It's not speaking to Korkmaz. It's speaking to how bad Doc Rivers was for players and their development and them finding their roles on the team.
All right.
But
hey, I'll keep an open. I'll promise you and TR. I'll keep an open mind. Okay.
I wouldn't be putting him in there over the likes of KJ Martin and Robert Covington and Nicholas Batum and Marcus Morris. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying maybe he can increase his trade value and become like a valuable piece as like that $5 million salary, right? Maybe that becomes like valuable in a trade here. But I do feel you in the same breath. It's like, we got that annual spark from Korkmaz in the season so far.
I will say he did make the most of his opportunity last night. So that's obviously step one, right? To continue to get playing time, you have to make the most of your limited action to start the year. And he did that. But yeah, to wrap up the opening conversation, my point was basically like under Doc Rivers, under Brett Brown, under many different coaches, like you said, Ty Lue's a great coach, but for the most part, if you're a basketball player, you're going to get minutes. Like the PJ Tucker thing. It's like, just go play basketball, like go run. Essentially, my point was when looking at this Nick Nurse thing schematically, like you said, how intricate is it that these dudes just cannot get on the floor yet
Yeah.
because they have to know A, B, C, D, and E before they're able to get out there and actually execute this offense and
And
be
they're
able to play
they're
their part on
experienced
defense.
players too. It's not like you're
Right,
pulling like KJ Martin, sure, maybe he's a young player that you
right.
can't throw out there, but I mean Robert Covington, Nicholas Batum, and Marcus Morris have been around the block more than a few times. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it does speak to how
TR
intricate it may
saying
be.
his most surprising part of the game last night was Toby getting a steal and going up strong for a dunk. Listen, man, Tobias Harris has looked, I don't want to say like a different Tobias Harris because we've seen this version of him before,
Yeah.
but it's a lot. It looks like we're getting it for the long haul now. It
I'm
looks
like,
like that's like he's actually a part of the plan, right?
yeah. I'm treading lightly with Tobias
Yeah.
Harris and like believing that
Right.
this is him, but
Another movie we've kind of seen before, right?
yeah, exactly. It's funny that you talk about Cork Miles, we talk about Tobias. They're in the same realm, except like on different levels, right? Tobias, when he's playing at this level, looks like an all-star, right?
Yeah.
Cork Miles doesn't play at that level, but sometimes he
Right.
shows a spark. But Tobias, man, it's interesting. He just looks so confident. He looks very quick decision based, right? He's making moves to the rim. He's attacking. He's getting to his spots. He has the ball in his hands, and we have seen it before. Now, last season I would say is the outlier. We really didn't see it
Yeah.
last season. The most we saw was him in that role, just letting it fly from the 3-point line, and we were happy with that. But
Right.
now he's starting to get back to that all-star level Tobias, that 20-point per game Tobias, where he's engaged defensively. And
Yep.
let's be
3
honest, man,
steals last
he
night.
looked we get through this season and we'll see where it's at. We'll see where we're at the trade deadline, blah, 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 so on and so forth. He outplayed Pascal Siakam in
1000%
both of these games so far,
on
right?
both
Like
ends of the floor
on both ends of the floor, guarding Pascal Siakam and then
and taking
ultimately
it to him.
taking it to him on the other end. And
Yep.
to that point, Pascal Siakam's one of those guys that, you know, you're opening up all this salary cap space and everybody's talking about him being a free agent. Tobias is a free agent too. So these are the type of conversations that are coming around. And that is why I'm treading lightly with Tobias, but it's great to see. And I'm loving what I'm seeing. And it's building my confidence there. I'm building back up for Tobias as a basketball player. And I'm starting to think maybe James Harden was just not good for Tobias's game. Like having him around, he was the one guy on the team that for sure his game did not raise by playing next to James Harden. And to that point, man, he's playing some really, really good basketball. 3 steals last night, 7 rebounds. When you're scoring the ball, you're touching the ball, it allows you to be engaged in other facets of the game. Scoring the ball is the most fun part of basketball.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's
like
the most eye-catching.
Everybody wants to score, right? And so when you score, it allows you to like relax off wanting to do that. And now you can go do the dirty
but he's
work.
still engaged elsewhere, right? That's the big thing for him. And let's be honest, he was the tone setter last night, right? And I think that's another role that Tobias can embrace where it's a night to night kind of basis. Yeah, sure. One night Joel's going to score 10 of the first 12 points, right? Another night Maxi's going to come out and hit 2 early deep threes and he's going to be the guy to set the tone. But last night it was Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris had what? 9 first quarter points. He came out with 14 in the first half. He was getting to the rack early, obviously hitting I think he hit 2 early threes in this one as well. He was phenomenal last night, and he continues to be phenomenal. Another guy that was phenomenal. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to say he's hitting shots in moments where it maybe last night isn't the greatest example. It wasn't necessarily
I know what you mean,
close, but he's hitting shots in those moments where you're like, we need that shot, right?
Yep.
Where we used to see like a Tobias airball 3 or Tobias straight off the backboard 3 over the other side of the rim. Like we're starting to see contested.
I know exactly what you mean, man.
High pressure shots, right?
He did it. The moment I go back to like he's done it in multiple games, and I know what you mean, but the Milwaukee game, top of the key 3, steps into it when they were down like 8. I think he knocked that down at the 5 or something with like 2 minutes left. And it's like if you don't knock down that shot game's probably over, right? They're
Yeah,
going to
it's
chew
sealed.
another 20 plus seconds off the clock. If they get a basket, it's a double digit game with a minute and a
Yeah,
half left. That's it. He steps into a three at the top of the key and buries it. And it's like, okay,
yeah,
see, that's the confident Tobias Harris I'm looking for, man. And like I said, it's not to say it's different, because I remember when Doc first got here and how he was changing Tobias Harris, right? And how in love we were with making the quick decisions and everything like that. And it's like, okay, he scored, he averaged the most since he did in Detroit, whatever year. And it's like, all right, this is the Tobias we need. And then for the last 2 years, you got away from that.
yeah.
And now you're starting to see it more consistently. Nick Nurse has done
Totally
a
agree.
hell of a job with every single one of his guys, including Tobias Harris.
Yeah,
Another guy that was unbelievable in a starting role last night, man. I
yeah,
can't. I feel like we're going to talk about him every time we get on this show. Kelly Oubre Jr. was unconscious last night, just
yeah,
simply unconscious. 30 minutes in a starting role, 8 for 13 from the floor, 5 of 6 from deep. He was even 2 of 3 from the free throw line. Hell, he had 5 rebounds. He had a steal. 23 points for Kelly Oubre Jr., Scotty, and that seeing that last night gives Nick Nurse and gives me like the confidence and the flexibility for Nick Nurse to do whatever he wants to do, right? Because you and
yeah,
I were kind of in the same boat, kind of when they made this trade. Like, yeah, I want to keep Kelly on the bench. I want that microwave scorer coming off the bench, and I still do. But you were kind of curious to see, well, how's he going to fit in between Maxey and Embiid and Toby
yeah.
and sharing the ball, and
Where's
is
the
he going to
shots
get the
going to come
same
from?
looks? I mean, he fits seamlessly. It felt like, bro,
Yeah,
like it was unreal to watch. Thoughts on what Kelly Oubre
yeah.
Jr. is doing right now, man?
He's been unreal, man. And
Is he the best value contract in the league through 4 games?
it's got to be. Yeah, I mean, it's got to be. He's probably averaging close to 20 points. I would have to
Yeah,
check it, but he's got to be up there. And that's why it looks so wild. That's why it seems so wild to watch him play and fit into this Sixers team, is because he's a 20-point per game scorer on a minimum contract. Like, it's malpractice that it happened. I don't know why,
yeah,
people look at him around the league like that. He talked about it recently with Shams, with the Athletic, and he doesn't really understand it either, but he kind of just took it on the chin, and he's
embracing
going
it,
to
dude.
ball out and
Yeah,
embrace it, and he's going to play part of winning basketball. And I think that's how he can kind of get out of that
yeah,
identity, out of that lens, is just by playing winning basketball with a winning franchise. I know Sixers fans, it sounds crazy to Sixers fans, but this is a team that makes the second round
right. It's a
religiously,
team that
and
wins
some
50
teams
plus
can't even
games a
touch the
year. Yeah,
playoff.
yeah,
So he's talked about how the organization has kind of shown him a new light. He said it feels like he's actually finally got to the NBA at this point, which I thought that was kind of wild to say. Because, yeah, he played on the Hornets, but he also played on the Warriors at one point, too. So,
yeah.
like that's a championship organization, but that was interesting nonetheless. But he's fit in seamlessly, man. And there's going to be nights like last night where he's shooting 5 for 6 from the 3-point line. Everything's going in, and those are the nights that you love. But then there's the nights like the last 2 games that we got from him where, yeah, the shot's not falling, but he's
Yeah,
getting
but
to
he's
the
still
free throw
finding
line.
ways. Yeah,
He's getting in the paint. He's cutting. He's
I
finishing
love
at
his
the rim.
ability to finish at the rim, bro.
Yeah,
Like
that's
in
a game changer.
awkward ways too. Like I
It's a
don't mean
game
like
changer.
fighting through contact and hitting a layup. I'm talking like off of an offensive rebound or off of a
Yeah,
last second feed from Embiid, and it's like defenders right there, and he kind of throws up like a half like left-handed jump hook
yeah.
looking type of finish and just knocks it
And
down.
the thing is, you see him on those cuts, and you can just imagine like other players too, like KJ
Yeah,
Martin hitting that cut and just dunking the basket. Like, we have options there. It's so nice as a Sixers fan. Um, the other guy that I thought last night looked a lot better, Paul Reed. I thought
yeah,
he looked a lot better last night than he
yeah.
did throughout the first 3 games. And I wanted to make sure I give him that credit because I felt like I was going hard on him the other day
Me too. I
in the
definitely was.
discussion. And he's a young guy. He's trying to figure it out, and he looked a lot better. There were still those moments where he gave up the offensive rebounds
Yeah,
last night, right? Got to fix those. That's just awareness, in my
Right, he
opinion.
missed a shot and then turned around and fouled the dude in the backcourt, like, just moments like
The
those.
little
Yeah,
things, man. And those are the things that will make a huge difference when you're playing a team like
yes,
Phoenix on Saturday, right?
yes.
A truly good contending opponent. So wanted to give him some credit. He looked a lot more composed, but it's a
Let
long
me,
journey for him. He's gotta
yeah.
still figure some things out there.
Let me talk about a positive off of a negative. All right. The one thing that I'm loving out of Nick Nurse so far, and we've already discussed it here on the show, but like when PJ Tucker earlier on in the year, when Kelly Oubre Jr. was coming off the bench and giving you 28, giving you
Yeah,
19, he was giving those fourth quarter minutes to Kelly Oubre and not PJ Tucker. He was giving it to the
yeah,
hot hand, right? The other thing he also does is has an eye for what's not working tonight, who's struggling tonight, and he'll fix it and adjust it, right? Patrick Beverly obviously only scores 2 points, but he ends up getting 28 minutes
yeah,
over DeAnthony Melton's 21 in the starting lineup. And I bring that up because DeAnthony Melton is just not working out in the starting lineup, man.
yeah,
He's not, and I know he was involved in other areas. He was a plus 10 last night, but the whole starting lineup was a plus, right? He had a
yeah,
steal, he had five assists, 5 rebounds. He's getting involved, man. But when he comes out, and you'll see it early, that shot's not falling early for D-Mount. It's
yeah,
not going. Things aren't going to turn around in the second quarter, in the third quarter, in the fourth quarter for him.
yeah,
And the issue early on is like, he'll keep shooting. He'll keep trying to finish at inside the on in transition 1-on-3.
yeah,
And you don't. That's not your best offense. Is my
yeah,
problem. Like, so when DeAnthony Melton comes out and misses his first 2 threes, and then he gets the ball in transition and tries to finish through 2 defenders at the rim and gets blocked or gets plucked, and it's going the other way. It's like, dude, someone pull this kid aside and say,
yeah,
slow down,
yeah.
right? Like,
And
he's not working in the starting lineup. I think this is my biggest takeaway so far. And you can't necessarily fix it yet until you make some roster adjustments, probably, because we don't want Pat Bev starting necessarily for this
right.
team, right? So you don't really have an answer at the 2 guard position right now. But the
I
the
think
idea of DeAnthony Melton is definitely more welcomed coming off the bench.
I agree. And I think, maybe you don't go the Pat Bev route. And I don't think that Nick Nurse is going to jump the gun on this too soon, because I think he likes DeAnthony Melton's defensive prowess in the
Yeah.
starting lineup to balance it. But like, I'm with you. I don't think it's working. I think it's also like allowing the defense to focus a lot more on a
Yep.
guy like Tyrese Maxey and Embiid. Obviously, the focus is always on him,
Yep.
but it allows DeAnthony Melton's man to help onto others. And it's kind
Right.
of the same thing you saw with PJ Tucker, except with DeAnthony Melton, he's going to have a guard guarding him. So
Yeah.
that's a lot more pesky. He's going to have quicker hands and get into passing lanes, different things like that. So I would even consider, and this is kind of out of the box, this is, going against what the Sixers have done in the past, but it is Nick Nurse. It's a different coach. And just start Kelly Oubre at shooting guard. Like, he's 6'7", I get it. He flows like a shooting guard. He can play a wing. That's all a shooting guard is in this day and age, is a wing. You have Kelly Oubre out there at the 2. You can put Tobias at the 3 or the 4, and
Right.
then insert somebody new into your starting
Batum or
lineup.
Marcus Morris. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I mean, I would consider it. I don't know. Depends what Marcus Morris looks like. Is he worse than
yeah.
DeAnthony Melton? I don't know at this point. We haven't seen him play in a while. So it's like you got
Almost
to.
a shame, man. If I saw more out of Jaden
Springer
Springer early on, Jaden Springer could be a candidate to fit there. But
plays defense. He seems, and that's the thing that worries me, Dylan. Jaden Springer, while he'll get a silly foul here and there, he looks more composed with the basketball in his hand. Like, he'll grab a rebound on the offensive end and he's not frantic. Whereas DeAnthony Melton, it just feels like he's moving 1,000 miles per hour. And just
my biggest thing with D-Mount right now, man, and it's only been early on, because let's be honest, he was 1 for 6 last night, and he probably took 5 of the shots early in the first quarter, 4 of the shots early in the first quarter. So it's not like he could just continue to pull trigger, but right now, he's a momentum killer on offense.
Yeah.
And it almost feels like he's just sucking the life out of the
Yeah.
offense early on in the game, man. Like the Sixers will go up by 6 or 5 or whatever early on, and it's like you're looking to build on that, try to stretch it to double digits, and it's like, well, here comes Deem out with a corner 3. He airballed like 2 threes last night, bro. Like he's just, he's got to figure it out, and it's almost to the point, like you mentioned, you still have that athleticism and defensive 2-guard out there. It's just like, man, if the message should almost be to him, if you're not hitting early, if you miss your first 2 to 3 shots, just do everything else that you can. He
should take a page out of Patrick Beverley's book. Patrick Beverley isn't out there to shoot. Right. He's out there to be in.
Except he was 1 for 6 as well last night.
He was 1 for 6 as well. I'm hip. But it felt like he had a bigger impact on the game just by being that pesky irritator. And that's what Patrick Beverley brings. And I appreciate Nick Nurse recognizing that in game and letting him get those minutes.
That's why I started the point with that. Like his ability, we're 4 games in, and I've already seen him do it with 2 different positions, guard and forward, where he is recognized. This isn't working, and this dude's playing well. This isn't working, and this dude's on fire from the field, right? And they get the fourth quarter minutes. They finish with the starting 5, right? Yeah. Dude, that is, I mean, let's call it what it is. Last year and in previous years, you're not getting that. You're not, like I told you before, PJ Tucker is probably playing 37 minutes the first 4 games under Doc Rivers. Like Kelly Oubre Jr. could have scored 28 in the first half against Milwaukee, and Doc wouldn't have had him finishing the game against Milwaukee.
You know what I'm really, and this is totally off topic, so I'm sorry for changing the page here.
We welcome it.
Why does everyone just consider Marcus Morris as washed? I'm like curious.
It's pissing me off.
I didn't watch a ton of Clippers basketball last year. Like obviously, I assume that he got playing time while Kawhi's in and out.
He averaged over 11 per game last year.
Like I'm just confused because like what I see in Marcus Morris, yes, he has a decent contract that comes along with him. But he did average 11 points, playing beside forwards like Kawhi and PG. So, like, why is it just assumed that he's washed? Yeah. Like, why can't he come to Philadelphia and have sort of a bounce back in his hometown where he's comfortable
and he seems
a role that fits him?
Yeah,
like there buckets.
There's 2 things that are evident here, man. He wanted out of LA. He wanted out of Hollywood. He wanted out of that state, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing is this is his hometown. And I think he's rejuvenated to be here now.
That's what I'm feeling,
he's
man.
Ramping up whatever's going on. I don't know if there's an injury that no one knows about, why he wasn't playing in LA and why he wasn't dressed last night.
I think he was just done with the Clippers, man. Yeah, I think that's what it was. I think he was just done with them.
But even then, Scott, like I said, he averaged over 11 points per game last year. Now that doesn't sound like much, but the Sixers have 4 guys averaging over 20 right now. So throw in another double-digit score, like just stop, man. Like why would that be a bad thing? Why would Marcus Morris, like if Marcus Morris averages 10 off the bench for the Sixers team, that's a huge win.
Like if he can be that guy where maybe Tobias is having an off night or maybe Kelly Oubre is having an off night, right? If Marcus Morris can be that guy that you just mentioned, right? How Nick Nurse has been able to recognize the hot hand, the guy who's feeling it in the moment. Marcus Morris could be that guy that comes off the bench one night and is feeling it. He could insert himself right into that Kelly Oubre role, and that's what I'm looking for. Yeah, 10, 11 points. That's all we're asking.
And Yang was essentially our 6th man.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you're talking like
he's got a better bag, man. I know the Rumph Classic. I've been down there to watch him play in person just last summer. And I know it's not the same competition, but he was out there with Markieff Morris. He was out there with Tyrese Maxey, a couple other NBA players, Isaiah Joe. And he was running that gym. Like he was playing up to the level of Tyrese Maxey. And I get it, they're NBA players. But he still has a lot left in the bag. And that's what I'm getting at here is like, this guy doesn't seem like he's, I think he's going to be better than Robert Covington. I think he's going to be better than Nicholas Batum. And it feels like people are kind of painting those guys as like the better players coming in just because they were I think they're better in roles. They're better role players for a team like the Clippers that are just maxed out on wings. But for the Sixers, where there's plenty of opportunity and land and ball possession to
I'm
be
going to
had,
say
I think
something
Marcus
that
Morris
Sixers
fits
fans
well.
aren't going to love. And you know, when he finally does get playing time and acclimated, and I hope he comes out and hits some wing threes for us and is building energy. I'm talking about Robert Covington, but the out of the four, that's the least.
Yeah.
He's the guy I'm least hopeful and or excited about. Like for me, it's Morris and Batum. The two veterans, the two bigger bodies, the forwards that can both shoot and score the ball. Then it's KJ Martin, and he's probably more so grouped in with them.
He's
it's
the
just
younger guy,
me, from a scoring perspective, he's a lot less unknown to me. He doesn't shoot the three ball incredibly well, so you're kind of hoping for that athleticism to show and that bounce to show. And then it's Covington, right? Like, so for when people are super pumped to have Rocco back in the building and back in a Sixers uniform, but want to talk down on Marcus Morris, it makes zero sense to me, man.
What it like, and I'm saying this, we'll see what Rocco has. Maybe he fits in beautifully with the Sixers, but what does he bring that is like super different from PJ Tucker? You know what I mean? Like, he's not a guy that averages 10 points per game and hits 2 to 3 threes a game. Like, he's not that guy.
No.
He's hit threes in his career. He's had great games from three, but so is PJ Tucker. Like, I just see him being that guy in the corner, right? Or maybe grabs the occasional offensive rebound or gets the occasional great defensive play. Like, that's how I look at Rocco. And it's still a good piece to have. I agree with you. I think Morris and I think Batum are the pieces that are going to fit a little bit better and make a bigger difference.
Here's the issue, right? And we sit here and we want to act like Rocco is the 3-and-D player that we miss and that we need. And again, we've seen him knock down a lot of threes here in Philadelphia.
Yeah, in Philadelphia.
My man has not shot the three ball well in his career since he really left Philly. And even when he was here, he was league average or slightly below.
Yeah.
But in the last 4 years, or no, 1, 2, 3, 4. In the last 5 years, he's had 1 year of average in double digits. In 2021, he averaged 10.4 points per game, and he shot 45% from three. Outside of that, he's averaged single digits per game, and he has shot 31.5% from three, 34.3% from three. He's shooting 25% from three this year, obviously on limited attempts, and 37.9% from three.
Yeah.
So, like, you get my point. And I'm not trying to, like, dog Rocco here. Like, it's another depth piece. But my point
is, like, a little bit better shooter than PJ Tucker. A little bit better.
And my point is, like, when you have a guy in Marcus Morris, who's kind of the point of this discussion here, it's like, how are you down on him as if those are the fans I'll never understand. Like, you're down on that guy, but you're ecstatic to have the other one back.
You know what it is? You know what it is for me? I get it. Rocco's kind of the same thing, and I get why fans love Rocco, but I want guys that want to be here. Like, after having, 2-3 seasons with Ben Simmons and James Harden just demanding to be out of here, Jimmy Butler just ditching the Sixers and going down to Miami. Like, I just want players that want to be in Philadelphia like, holistically, right? Obviously, I want the best players in the world on the team. I want the best team possible. But at the very least, give me guys that love the city and want to be here, like Marcus Morris, who is from here. He's talking like this is a dream come true at the age of, like, 33, 34 years old.
I'm telling you, man, I'm excited to see him
coming back inspired. I like it, man.
Team, man. No, I agree. Him and Batum are the two guys that I want to see come out and can contribute. And this team's deep. And I want to go back to this comment that Marshawn Lynch started with here.
Yeah.
Because I think, honestly, man, this is the biggest takeaway for me. And I think it's the message that all Sixers fans have. I was texted this by 3 different people last night. I'm not kidding. Not this exact wording, obviously, but this sentiment. I don't know if we win the championship with this team.
Yeah.
But I love all the activity on defense and all the motions on offense. Basically, the message is, I don't know if we're good enough to win it all, but I know that I love this team 40 times more than I did last year.
And I think that's where it starts, man. I think that's where it starts and the belief starts. And as we see them start to pile it on, that's where the confidence can grow. The belief is there, the hope is there for this style of basketball because they're playing basketball the right way. Even Joel Embiid, man, I harped on him at the beginning of the season, but he's figuring this out very quickly. He's
Yep.
picking it up and he's starting to look like a very great piece in this Nick Nurse system. He's starting to fit the system, but also still get his numbers, right? Find his spots. And it's exciting, man, because as I've said several times on the show, man, the Sixers played disgusting basketball under Doc Rivers.
And we tried to buy into it, right? We talked ourselves into it because Embiid's just that good to carry a team, right? And Harden has flashes and Maxey has flashes, and you buy into it. But when you look back, man, like if right now someone did the work of just running clips of half court sets from last year and this year, side by side frames, we would just be like, oh my God.
Jaw dropping. And I think what we need to realize as well as Sixers fans, we get so down in the offseason, especially after banging our head against the wall in the second round. But the truth is, man, Embiid is just so good that you're going to have a chance. Even if it's 2%, you're going to have a chance at the NBA championship.
Exactly.
If things roll your way. A lot of the time, that is what it comes down to, right? Things just rolling a team's way. Yeah. Giannis, right? When Giannis won the championship, how did they get through the Brooklyn Nets? Harden was injured, Kyrie injured, Durant's foot on the toe on the line on that 3-point attempt, that 2-point attempt that could have won them the game. Ultimately, it goes to overtime. They lose that series. A lot of things have to go your way, right? It took Harden shooting disastrously in Game 6 and Game 7 for it to go Boston's way.
Yeah.
So it's like when you start to think of things intricately like that, it's like you do have a chance with Joel Embiid as long as he is
1,000%
and on the floor.
1,000%. And I also think this is a nice test run of a season to see just how you want your roster to be built. And obviously around deadline time, it's going to become increasingly interesting. And the asking price for Levine or Don, whatever, we'll get into those conversations come January and February. Yeah. But my point is that the Sixers keep playing this kind of ball, and they're a top 3 seed in the Eastern Conference, right? And Tobias is averaging 20, and the depth is showing, and Embiid and Maxey are on fire together.
Yeah.
Obviously, the goal still feels like flipping assets for a star in Levine, right? But if you get to that point and everything's working out like I just laid out, is it worth it then? Are you messing with this style of ball? Unless you can get Levine for mostly draft comp Tobias, which you're just plugging in Levine for Tobias, which even if Tobias is averaging 20, you're still going to take Zach Levine in the lineup over Tobias. And I think,
honestly, man, I think they have so many resources now, assets, that they should be able to do it. Like, we're talking about 13 different people.
That's what I was going to say. Floor. Like, even if you have to give up 2 bench pieces or 3 bench pieces, you're still going to have 11 deep, right? 12 deep at that point.
I think my line would be drawn at, like, I'm not giving up Tobias and like Kelly Oubre on the minimum contract, right? Like, that's not happening. It would have to be, man, Tobias is playing really well. It feels wrong to even talk about him in trade conversations. I'll be honest.
I know.
I think it makes you almost pivot to thinking like, can you get Malcolm Brogdon rather? Can you get Buddy Hield? Just to be in that DeAnthony Melton starting shooting guard role, right? How much better does it look with Buddy Hield standing on the wing, shooting threes compared to DeAnthony Melton?
Yeah.
Right? In a starting role. So I think
and
that's
I hate
where
bringing
you
it up,
have
right?
to explore other ideas, but
I hate bringing up it's November 3rd, right? And the deadline is not until February. So it's so far away. So much can happen. So much can go wrong or even continue to pick up steam for the Sixers team. It's definitely a conversation with how the depth is showing, and we hope to continue to show with the new additions. So we'll see. I also got a text last night from my uncle that said I would try to extend Oubre now. Like he's not far off, man. Like obviously you can't 4 games you can't, right? Like,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's like you would
Like
love
if
to
he
get this
was,
guy back off the bench. The
if you
last
were,
thing, go
if
ahead.
you were to predict a contract for him just off those 4 games, it's going to be pretty nice. So
Yeah,
yeah, maybe wait a little bit for him
yeah,
to come down to earth, then offer the contract. It's funny.
exactly.
One more thing. The
Oh yeah,
Tobias Harris conversation. I saw a Trill Bro dude last night. He tweeted it from the You Know Ball podcast, and he said, "How old? What is the age restriction for somebody to win Most Improved Player?" And he was talking about Tobias Harris, and it's such a funny question
yeah,
because it's so true.
yeah.
But no, man. What were you gonna say though?
I was gonna say the last thing that I really can take away from last night's game is this Sixers team just beat a Toronto Raptors team who they're 2-4 now, and obviously 2 losses come from the Sixers, but have beat them twice. And this
Yeah,
is a formidable Raptors team that just kicked the dog shit out of Giannis and Dame and the rest of the Milwaukee Bucks. So it's not like they have 2 wins against, me and you.
yeah,
Um but the Sixers were able to accomplish this last night with Embiid and Maxey combining for 41.
yeah,
Like that's the biggest thing for me when you continue to look at depth and you look at the way that Tobias Harris and Kelly Oubre Jr. are
yeah,
continuing to put the ball in the hole right now. Like, dude, you just won a game by 15, a game you had control for basically
yeah,
most of it. I mean, the Sixers won every single quarter. It was
yeah,
close at times in the third, whatever. They won every single quarter. And your scoring champ who averages 30 plus scored 23, and you know, your rising star in Maxey didn't hit a 3 last night and scored a season low 18.
yeah.
And you just manhandled a good Eastern Conference opponent.
And the crazy part is, once again, you see Maxi at what? Is this his floor? Is this game his floor performance,
Exactly.
right? But
Exactly.
you don't have the missed layups. You don't have the, threes out of rhythm. You don't have Maxi dribbling the ball out of chemistry, right? It's the
Exactly, man.
difference, man. It's the
It
difference.
really
His
is.
floor looks so much cleaner, almost shooting 50% from the field, no threes, but still not a bad shooting
Scotty,
percentage.
I'm being serious. He has changed my perspective on this team's ceiling
Yeah,
so much through 4 games. And
yeah,
I mean that, man. Like, if we legitimately thought, if you look back at last year's team, if we legitimately thought that this team could reach the Eastern Conference Finals and potentially get to an NBA Finals appearance because we had the name James Harden, right?
yeah,
When you look at that bench and you look at the way that Maxey was limited and Tobias was limited, right?
yeah,
So basically, we're hoping that the MVP and the name James Harden was going to get us there.
yeah,
If you look around and you say, okay, I get this Tobias Harris versus that Tobias Harris. I have this bench and this depth versus all of that last year. And I have Tyrese Maxey in place for Harden,
yeah,
and the floor to ceiling ratio is a lot higher and better for Maxey's
yeah,
favor. Why do we look down on this team ceiling?
yeah. And all of a sudden, you have Kelly Oubre in the PJ Tucker spot,
Right.
scoring 20 points per game.
Right. Like
So,
I've really,
yeah,
my
I'm with
mindset
you.
has changed, and maybe I'm just overreacting to 4 early games, man. I definitely could be, but I really don't know why we thought last year's team was the difference maker, all because of the namesake in James Harden.
Yeah,
And we look at this team like, nah, they don't have enough. When in reality, we have way more.
yeah. It's true. I do believe it, man. Especially with the additions from the Clippers trade. I think they have way more now, and this team's looking good. I think we get another true test on Saturday against
Yeah.
the Suns. That should be a good matchup to see exactly where we're at. Devin Booker's back in the lineup for them. And yeah, I saw TR, I think, asked it earlier. Is either him or Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah,
But
Wemby and the Spurs beat
Wemby,
him
man,
twice,
that
man.
dude is a
Beat him
monster.
twice in the last couple of
Yeah.
nights.
This man,
And I
Wemby,
did watch
though,
the game because I did have
he's
the over.
pulling up off he's pulling up threes off the dribble, just like dribbling up the court.
I
Like,
will
pull
say
up
though,
threes.
man, like Wemby has been fun to watch, and that size and the way he's able to
Yeah,
just go over dudes with his length and his wingspan and just finish at
weird.
the rim is nuts. But that's going to be a very fun young team to continue to keep an eye on.
Devin
Not just because
Vassell,
of him, dude.
Keldon
Vassell got
Johnson.
hurt and he didn't play in the second half. He was unconscious to start that game, and he's one of the reasons they won the first game. Keldon Johnson's a fun young piece. And then they just have other guys like they have Doug McBuckets coming off the bench. They have Steady Osmond draining threes.
Energy,
they have a couple other guys. Zach Collins. Looks like the young Zach Collins from Portland, right?
They need a good point guard, and then they're going to be solid, man. I think that's the last piece there. I think they got like Trey Jones and like Jeremy Sohan, like running like
I hate, bro.
Role.
I cannot stand Jeremy Sochan. I cannot stand watching.
Yeah, I feel you. He's just kind of like I don't even know what to call him. He doesn't do anything particularly great, right? He's just kind of out there and lengthy, but they can use an upgrade.
Saying guard. Saturday should be a win. I don't care if it's the Suns. This team has enough defensive acumen to deal with the offense. I agree. I will say I do, but the only thing that's throwing me off is I do believe in balance and averages, and the fact that the Phoenix Suns just lost back-to-back games at home to the San Antonio Spurs just feels like bad juju for the Sixers, right? Like it doesn't it like it. Like, are the Spurs going to lose 3 straight and blah, blah, blah?
Is it bad juju? They just have to fly across the country, after they're playing.
And I believe this as well. He cooks us every single time we play the Phoenix Suns, man. So TR's got him going for 35.
Maybe throw Patrick Beverly on him and see if he can talk some shit. Maybe get in his head. Maybe that backfires. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know if you want to make Booker mad, but
yeah.
Should be an interesting test, though, man.
We'll see, man. I was going to ask you a question about the Suns game, and now I'm forgetting. Whatever. Do you have them winning Saturday?
Yeah, at home. I would say, this would be the first true big win for them. I'm not jumping over the skies over the Raptors and the Blazers wins, although good to see 3 wins in a row against teams you should beat.
I do agree with this statement, though. These are the games where where you truly lock in and judge those big 3, right? And hell, you're going to judge everybody, right? You're going to judge the depth because cool. Like we've done that in the past, right? We've fallen in love with Niang and Shake Milton and DeAnthony Melton coming off the bench for us last year when they're beating up on the Hawks and other teams, but then they score 8 points combined against the Boston Celtics. Yeah. Right. So you're going to judge everyone. I just think the biggest thing for me is that at least like 2 of the 3 here, like at least Joel and Tyrese show up. And even if it's a loss, if that makes sense, you know what I mean? Like if the Suns beat us 121-118, right? Are we really going to complain if Joel has 30? They just lost a close game to Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. Like, no, but if Joel comes out and looks like he did against Milwaukee and has 7 turnovers and the Sixers lose because of that play, then we're going to come back to that discussion of, dude, I need you in these moments.
Yeah, that's the thing for me. It's like, I do want to see Tobias continue to play well. I want to see Tyrese Maxey. I personally don't have any fear that Tyrese Maxey is going to disappear. No, I don't think he's got that in him, man. I think he's just a dog that goes out there every night and is going to do his job to the best ability. Embiid is the one, though, man. I see him with the 35 points, the 6 blocks, 7 assists, 15 rebounds against the Blazers. Well, the Suns don't have anybody to guard you.
Nobody, bro.
Nurkic,
Drew Eubanks? Oh, Nurkic,
so
he's the starter.
If Embiid doesn't give me 30 and over 10 rebounds against this team on Saturday night, I'm going to be very disappointed. And if he does that, it should turn into a win, in my opinion. I think he has that ability to control that game. I think you look at it, man, like, let's give some props to Embiid. He's the best player in that game right now. He's playing the best out of all 3 of those guys right now. When you look at Durant and Devin Booker, they're great players, but Embiid is the MVP. Like that's the reality. We have the best player on the court when we're going into this game. I get it. Legacy-wise, we can give KD the nod, but Embiid is the MVP currently, the reigning MVP. So we gotta have confidence in that they can.
I'll tell you though, like our eyes are definitely on the stars because they have
Yeah,
to show up. But to me, I think the difference maker or makers in this team is the depth here.
yeah,
And what I mean by that is like Joel, Tyrese, Tobias, can you just even out what
yeah,
D-Book and KD do? And if you do that, I think the Sixers have a great chance of winning this game because
yeah,
then the depth comes into play. That Bradley Beal trade hurt Phoenix's depth, and Bradley Beal is hurt, so he's not a factor right now. At least I don't think he's playing Saturday
yeah,
yet.
yeah.
So with that
I don't think
said,
so.
I've watched actually probably 3 of Phoenix's first 4 or 5 games so far this year, and they just shouldn't have enough firepower, man, to deal with the Sixers' depth, especially if as long as the new guys are playing, right?
Yeah,
I'm gonna walk this back if Furkan's the first guy off the bench again. But if the Sixers are loaded and ready to go, you're looking at guys like Drew Eubanks and Josh
yeah.
Okogie and
I
Yuta
think
Watanabe and
I think
like it just
even if those guys from the Clippers trade don't play, I think once again you're at home. You have these players ready
yeah,
to go. You're able to go out there and perform with your starting lineup the way you have. If anything, it just evens the playing field. It's not like the Suns are at an advantage if those guys don't play. If the depth guys do play, then there's no doubt you should win this game, in my opinion. So yeah, maybe my confidence is a little high for the Sixers, but I do think this is one of those games where you haven't beat a contender yet. You have this contender at
yeah.
home. I get it. They're on a 2-game losing streak. You need to put them further into the ground. There's no
Yeah.
excuses. So
No,
I'm
I
I'm
like
I'm,
it, man.
I'm with you. I'm looking for something from this Sixers team. This is like a prove it game so far in the season.
Listen, man. We're gonna move on to Eagles Dallas week in a second here, but he said, speaking of depth, Milwaukee's depth is beyond suspect, and I know that the Boston Celtics are lossless on the season so far, so things seem to be working out pretty well
Yeah,
there. They dropped like 150 plus the other night, dude. The Boston Celtics depth is an absolute effing joke. If you want to talk about depth.
yeah,
Like their starting 5 obviously is as good as any with adding Kristaps and Drew Holiday to that lineup, bro. They literally have Sam Hauser, Peyton Pritchard, Luke Cornett coming off the bench for them, and Al Horford. That's their bench. So there's reasons to continue to be optimistic when comparing this
yeah,
Sixers roster to the top 2 in the East. Does that mean the Sixers are better than them? No. But again, I think coming off of what all the drama and the way that last season ended, we were definitely all too low and down on the Sixers roster. And now you add in the
yeah.
trade pieces, the Sixers, the Sixers are going to be right there when it comes to those 2 teams. I feel it for some reason, dude.
Yeah. I thought that they were the third best team in the East coming into the season. And they're certainly proving that. And I think they're entering that conversation, right? Obviously, we need to see more games. We need to see
Yeah.
against better teams, but it
Yeah,
does
again,
feel
like
like they're
Saturday,
playing great
how are they
local
going to fare, right?
basketball.
Because it's all well and good that you win 3 straight with 2
Yeah,
against the Toronto Raptors and 1
the
against the
Blazers.
Portland Trailblazers.
Yeah,
Like that's cool, but you've lost to the Bucks, and hey, like I'm not mad at that loss at all. But you lost by 1 to the Bucks. If you come out and lose at home to the Suns, you're
yeah,
3-2, and your 2 losses are to the 2 best teams you played. So
yeah.
it's a long season. You're going to get multiple opportunities to
Not the end
show
of the
your
season if they lose,
competition,
but
but you
yeah.
definitely want to see competitive basketball against the upper echelon of the league, man.
'Cause I think, looking at this Sixers team, there's something that can be established, and I think home court advantage is one of those things that you can
Yeah.
establish early this season, the comfortability of that, putting defensive pressure on teams when you are at home. And that's kind of the identity I would like to see from this Sixers team, just taking care of business at home. This isn't the Milwaukee Bucks coming into town. This is a depleted Phoenix Suns team coming into town. And so to that point, like to see a W on Saturday, man. But it would be a fun game to watch nonetheless. If it's a close one, I'll be
Agreed.
happy regardless. So
Speaking of fun games to watch,
yes.
we finally get the quarterback battle that we've been waiting
Perfect.
for, man. And I to me, let's get into this Eagles Cowboys game because to me that's the biggest storyline that I'm
Yeah.
getting ready for on Sunday afternoon. Right now, obviously, Eagles come in at 7-1. They hold the best record in the NFC, but the Cowboys are sitting at 5-2, knocking on the door. What are the Cowboys? 4-2 or 5? They're 5-2, correct?
5-2.
Yes, 5-2. They already had their bye week. They're knocking on the a win there, close to almost evens things up when it comes to the NFC East. So this is a huge game for both teams, especially when you look at this Eagles schedule coming up post Dallas, when you do have the Chiefs and the Bills and the Niners and the Seahawks and so on. It does get very, very scary. But to me, this is the first time we're getting the real Jalen Hurts versus the real Dak Prescott. And that's what I'm most excited for. And you can even go back to the Carson Wentz era, man. Like, we have rarely gotten QB1 versus QB1 in this matchups. The last time we did was that Monday Night Massacre in Jalen's first year as a starter, when that's not this Jalen Hurts, right? So last year, obviously, Jalen missed a game and Dak missed a game. We haven't gotten it yet, man. And that's what I'm most excited to see. Their best versus our best. Micah Parsons in that defense versus Hassan Reddick and our defense. Dan Sileo put out a report. I'm choosing not to believe it because of where it's coming from and him just saying my sources in the locker room are telling me that clown. But his report were that the Dallas Cowboys wide receiver room are laughing at the Eagles secondary in their team meetings. That was his report. And some people are running with it on social media and calling it bulletin board material for the Eagles. And who knows? Maybe it's true. I can't see a world where they're physically laughing at the Eagles secondary. But with that said, man, what are you looking forward to most in this game position-wise? Is it Jalen versus Dak? Is it in the trenches? Is it our corners versus their receivers? Our receivers versus their corners? Where do you find the biggest matchup or mismatch?
I just find that hilarious, man. Like, if they are laughing and they are allowing that to get reported out, I mean, that's just it's a joke within itself.
It did come from Dan Sileo and Jacob Media, so I do hold back on believing that it's true.
I do believe the biggest matchup that's going to make the difference in this game is the Eagles' defensive line being able to stop the run. And I think making that Cowboys offense one-dimensional, not letting Tony Pollard get off in this game, is going to be key. Once you know that it's Dak coming at you, it prepares you a lot better than having to guess if this is going to be a run or a pass, right? We put the pressure on Dak. And I think that's the key in this game. We need our guys to show up. That includes the linebackers as well. That whole front seven, they need to be ready to stop the run. And of course, the secondary needs to be ready to play up. I don't think you can let this Dallas team dink and dunk you down the field like you did the Commanders. But that being said, once again, I've seen a lot of people talking about the Commanders game and, you know, the Cowboys being able to attack the Eagles in a different facet, but on a better level, right, than the Commanders. The Cowboys aren't patient enough to do this, man. Like,
it's such a naive statement.
Amount of patience to play the way Sam Howell plays. And to the other point, man, you think back to these last two Commanders matchups, right? It looks a lot like what the Chiefs did in the Super Bowl, right? And it looks a lot like Eric Bieniemy just has our number. Like, that's what this looks like to me.
Yeah,
the two outliers of this season are the Commanders games where we've given up over 30 points each game, right? That's the outlier. The Super Bowl is the outlier last year. That's the one game where we got exposed as a defensive unit, and it was against Eric Bieniemy. I don't think Mike McCarthy is Eric Bieniemy, man. Like, I think that's the difference, right?
It's such a naive statement from a lot of people that know a lot about the game, former players and media analysts and members that have been around this game and covering this game forever. It's so completely asinine to say, well, Washington was able to exploit this and that. So what do you think Dallas is going to do? And Dallas is licking their chops at that Eagles secondary and so on and so forth. Look, I don't have a rhyme or reason as to why the Eagles aren't successful against Sam Howell and the Commanders. Maybe you're 1,000% spot on. Maybe it's just the fact that Eric Bieniemy is the play caller, and Eric Bieniemy knows exactly what to do and all the buttons to press.
Yeah.
I don't know why they can barely get after the most sacked quarterback in the league. I don't know why Sam Howell turns into Joe Montana versus them. But it's just such a naive statement because why couldn't Miami do it, right? Why couldn't the number one offense in the league do it?
Yeah.
Why couldn't Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins do it through the first 3 quarters? And if we're talking Eagles, can't we say the same thing about the other side of things?
Yes, that's my biggest thing.
Look at what Arizona did against Arizona.
We are
Look
2
at what
weeks
they did against
removed.
the Cowboys. Can I say why can't the Eagles do that against the Cowboys?
We are 2 weeks removed from the 49ers beating the Cowboys 42-10.
Yeah, man.
And yet you have people telling us that the Cowboys are salivating and laughing at our defense. Was George Kittle salivating going up against Dallas? Like what are we doing here?
An asinine naive statement.
Rushing yards were the running back salivating? Like
this league is so matchup based and week to week, and it's just so dumb to sit there and look at what another team did. Yeah, you can look at what another team did and try to take the blueprint and everything like that, but just because the Cowboys have better personnel and a better quarterback and they're a better team than the Commanders doesn't equal the Cowboys doing what the Commanders did or more. Like I said, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Tua came in averaging over 500 yards of offense. They were held to under 230 against the same Eagles defense.
I do think what Marshawn Lynch is pointing to here is another big key in this game. Obviously, the matchup with CeeDee Lamb. That's their most dynamic weapon. He lines up in the slot a lot. That's going to be one of the bigger matchups in this game, and it is one of the weaker spots in the Eagles' defense. So somebody is going to have to step up. I expect Kevin Byard to be a lot better this week after having
he's been a Dak Prescott and Cowboy killer since he's been in the league.
Yeah.
TR talking about our defensive line getting over on that offensive line for the Cowboys. Who's going to stop Jordan Davis?
Line to show
Jalen Carter. I'm assuming Jalen Carter is good to go for this weekend, correct?
Yeah, he's good. He was a full practice participant throughout the week. That defensive line needs to make a statement in this game that they are definitively better than the Dallas Cowboys defensive line. I know they don't go directly against each other. The Eagles offensive line, we know what they are. The Eagles defensive line need to make a statement in this game showing that they are better. You have the better duo in pass rushers, right? Yes, Micah Parsons, he's better than Hassan Reddick. If you want to go that route, I don't know. The numbers the last 2 seasons are close. If you want to go that route and say he's better than Hassan Reddick, fine. You don't have another guy that's better than Josh Sweat. You don't have a guy that's close to Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter in between those guys.
Dude, but Mozzie Smith, dude, he's going to be the run stopper that we need. You fucking idiots. But anyway, speaking of Mozzie Smith and that Cowboys defensive line, we've spent the last couple minutes talking about the Eagles defense, and obviously that's going to be a major key. It has been the storyline this week because people are super focused on what Dak has obviously had great success against all of our past Eagles defenses, different personnel, different defensive coordinators, different schemes. What's he going to do this year versus us? It's definitely the bigger picture. But what I'm looking at in this game, Scotty, and I want to go back to Marshawn Lynch's point, man, is these 2 comments right here. We win this game with a strong, impactful run game. Time of possession is our strongest weapon. Run at Micah Parsons. Use your speed and strength at the receiver and tight end position, man. I promise you, do not drop back and throw the ball 47 times on Sunday afternoon. Don't do it. The health of your quarterback doesn't need it. You don't want to allow that pass rush to get activated. Run the football at them. It's exactly what San Francisco did to them, and it's what the stinking Arizona Cardinals were able to do to them, man. The blueprint. You want to talk about blueprint with the Cowboys and the Eagles say the blueprint is out on what to do against this Cowboys defense, on what to do to limit that pass rush. You run the ball and you run it directly at number 11, man.
That is the one facet of this game that worries me. Is the Eagles shooting themselves in the foot? Because they have done that all season for sure, and the coaching staff has been part of that at times. Brian Johnson, last few weeks has been spectacular. Play calling, it's been great. It's looked very good. The personnel, questionable. Gainwell, right? Spots where we're using him, questionable. But aside from that, everything has been great. You cannot come out here and have Jalen throw the ball over 40 times against this team. If you're down in the game, so be it. You do what you got to do. But if this is a close game throughout, there is no reason that we shouldn't be running the ball with DeAndre Swift. You didn't use him that much against the Commanders. I hope it's because you're going to use him against this team. It needs to happen. I don't need to see a bunch of Gainwell either. I don't need to see a bunch of QB runs, right? Don't need to see a bunch of that. I need to see DeAndre Swift between the tackles. I want to see him run to the right side behind Lane Johnson. If Cam Jurgens can't go, it's Tyler Steen for me. It's not Sua Opeta. We're putting Tyler Steen in that guard role, and we're running the football, man. I think that is the one thing that is in the back of my mind. And it's not that I think our coaching staff is not better than the Cowboys or anything like that.
But
I think they just overthink sometimes. I think that's part of
overthink and fall in love with one aspect of their play calling sheet.
Because it will be super fun. It will be super fun to see us throw for over 300 yards, score 35 plus points, and get
dude,
AJ
I
Brown
think the beautiful thing is the beautiful thing about this offense and this matchup is that they're still going to be able to. I think there's room for Jalen to throw for around 300 on 32 pass attempts, 31 pass attempts, and I think there's room for them to rush for over 100. Yeah, I think that's the biggest key. Protecting the football, like Brett said, no more than one turnover, and obviously trying to force turnovers on the other side of things. The last thing I would say is I know I just preached running the ball at this team, and that is the blueprint, right? That should be the game plan. But I am very, very interested to see what number 11 for the Eagles can continue to do this week, man. Trevon Diggs was not able to cover him on Christmas Eve with Gardner Minshew getting the ball last year. There's no Trevon Diggs this year. Is Stephon Gilmore following around A.J. Brown the entire game? And if he is Stephon Gilmore's legs holding up against A.J. Brown the entire game? And if it's not Stephon Gilmore, who's switching off on the age? I am so interested to see if they can take advantage of that mismatch in the secondary there, man, because they were able to do it last year.
Been pretty good.
What's up?
Deron Bland has been pretty good. That's like their number 2 slot.
Yeah, that's cute.
He's a slot specialist.
That's cute.
He's been pretty good.
Yeah, that's all right. Well, Deron Bland's going to be in for a very long afternoon if he's following around A.J. Brown.
No, I don't think I think he'll be on Smitty. I think that's where he'll spend most of his time. I think Gilmore will be on AJ, and even then, it doesn't matter. Like AJ, like I do, and I think that's the other side of the conversation where we're saying run the football. When you're Nick Sirianni, wide receiver coach, and you're Jalen Hurts, you like to throw the ball deep. It's like I see where it comes from. Like it is fun.
For sure.
Like, and AJ probably will catch it. It's just there is a more certain way to go about it when you can just run the football down their throats, and that will open the deep ball, the passing game up all the way. So
yeah,
we'll get to talk about this more on Sunday, Eagles pregame. We're going to tear this up, but man, it was nice to talk about it this morning, kind of get initiated into the conversation because you can just feel it. As soon as we kind of switched over to the Eagles and the Cowboys combo, I could just feel the energy rising here. Yeah. It's a big showdown, man. This is would you say this is the toughest team we played all season? Like, would you put them over the Dolphins as far as like contender wise and tough team to play? I think defensively, definitely.
That's tough. I think so. I think that Dallas is an overall better football team than the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah. There's nothing like Tyreek Hill, though. There's just nothing like Tyreek Hill.
Because part of me was going to say, well, yes, for sure, because in terms of contenders, because Miami hasn't proven anything to be a Super Bowl contender in the Tua era yet, but then Dallas hasn't done anything to prove it. So it's like I don't know. I guess so. But I do think it's incredibly important to start this 6-game stretch with a win. It's your division. It's the number 2 in your division to continue to build ground and get road in between the two of you guys for the division lead is incredibly important. And then, like you said, it's only going to get tougher. Like, yeah, this is going to be a tough ass matchup. And there is the divisional rivalry instilled. So maybe it does make it a little more difficult than the Bills coming to town. But you got to go to Arrowhead in prime time. You got to play Josh Allen. You got to play San Francisco in that NFC Championship rematch. You got to go to Seattle, where we never have success. There is a stretch. You play Dallas again later on in the year. There is a stretch coming, man, that we have not experienced as Eagles fans in quite some time in terms of strength of schedule. Okay, so starting it off with a win at home right now is really, really big.
I agree.
I will say thank you to the schedule makers. I know that this gauntlet is tough, but the fact that when they put the schedule up on the board of the next 4 games, the fact that 3 of the 4 are at home, the fact that Dallas, Buffalo, and San Francisco are at home and only Kansas City is on the road is gigantic for this team. So we'll see if they're able to keep home field advantage and so on and so forth, man. But like you said, we will be live right here on this DSM Philadelphia YouTube channel for Eagles Cowboys pregame live Sunday afternoon. If you guys are new to the channel and want to support, make sure to smash that subscribe button. We are over halfway to 100, which is our first goal here on the new channel. So help us out. Turn on notifications for whenever we go live or post a video on the channel as well. For myself, for Scotty, for DSM, have a great rest of your weekend.
Go Birds, go